Hi, welcome back. Ted here. I hope you took the time to complete video 5 and do the exercises. If you did, you have a pretty good idea what your 5 big V values are and your 5 little v values are. Why is this important? Because your values, what you think is important in life that costs money, drives your spending. In this video, video 6, we're going to talk about the next thing you need to be aware of, and I call it your money temperament. Money temperament, very simply, is a composite of you, your feeling brain, your thinking brain on money. Remember, all spending is emotional. That's right, it is. All spending is emotional. We're not nearly as rational as we think we are. 95 to 99% of your spending is unconscious, biased, feeling brain behavior. So when you review video 2 on behavioral economics, there's a list in there about why we as humans are not rational with our money. So what do we mean by money temperament? It's the title of the book. I selected money temperament as the title of the book because we really don't talk about this when we're talking about financial literacy, financial planning, success with money. We just kind of assume we get it. And we almost absolutely discount the impact of our feeling brain, thinking brain coming together and our spending choices. I think that's wrong. What we have to understand is who we are, your money temperament, based on your values. It's a composite of your behavior, your biology, and your culture. They all come together to help determine who you are, how you spend, how you choose, and I call this your money temperament. So what do we mean by that? Let me ask you a couple of questions. In the chapter in the book, which is chapter 6, I go into this in a lot more detail. And I give you some exercises and a roadmap to help you discover your unique money temperament. A couple things you need to understand. When I say unique money temperament, there's nobody else out there like you. Your background, your biology, your belief set, your culture influences your money decisions. You can't superimpose your money temperament on somebody else, nor is it reasonable to allow somebody else to superimpose their temperament on you. How you think, how you feel about money is critical to your financial success. So let me ask you a couple questions. Do you like to spend money or do you like to save money? You ever thought about that? Do you demand the best in everything you do in your money decision? No compromise. It has to be perfect. A lot of people are like that. Do you like to take risk with your money? Are you the type of person that cannot tolerate any loss? Well, those are examples of how your money temperament interacts with a spending decision to force you into certain behaviors. Let's talk about the spender-saver for a second. Spender-saver. In most cases, you get beat over the head that you're spending too much, you're not saving enough, and there's a lockstep way to do savings, and you've got to follow this dogma. Well, let me ask you whether you're a spender or a saver. And this is the emotional trigger I'm thinking about. Do you get enjoyment about going to the mall and shopping? Or would you rather poke your eyes out than have to go to a large place with a lot of other people who are spending? Do you have a closet full of stuff you don't know why you bought it? Or do you take great satisfaction of looking at your portfolio almost daily to see how things are going? Do you spend a lot of time living for today, or do you worry about where you're going to be in the future? These are examples of difference in spending saver patterns. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter what you are. The point is, that's who you are. If the valet at Nordstrom's knows your name, that's fine. It's okay to be like that. But that simply means when we get into the other videos, you need to take steps to establish a strategy that makes sure that when you're at Nordstrom's, you stay within your budget. Now, budget's a dirty word, I know, but we'll talk about that later. So are you a spender or a saver? And the first thing that popped into your mind is probably accurate, spender-saver. Next, are you a maximizer or a sufficer? What do I mean, maximizer? Maximizer is the person that at any spending situation demands the finest, demands everything. Quality is important. And I'll tell you, if you're working with a financial advisor and the advisor indicates that on average this investment has gotten an 80% rate of return, and that person calls you up and says, hey, congratulations, we got a 79.9% rate of return, you don't tolerate that? Because you think that person's a liar because he or she promised you an 80% rate of return? That's a maximizer. Maximizer, when you buy a new car, do you go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure everything's all right, that it's exactly right as represented? And if it's not the way you like it, are you the type of person that will send it back maybe 2-3 times? That's a maximizer. Sufficer, on the other hand, is the master of the 80% solution. Good enough. They realize that putting a lot of effort into get more and more out of less and less can be counterproductive. A sufficer is the type of person who says, yeah, I know there was a slight scratch in the back, but I can live with that. Or, yeah, you promised me an 80% rate of return, but I'm good to go. 75 is more than sufficient. Or even worse, I didn't even realize I had that investment. Maximizer, sufficer. Again, it's the way you look at the world. It's the way you look at your money. It's the way you make your choices, and it's also an indicator of your expectations when you choose. Maximizer, sufficer. One more example, risk taker versus risk avoider. Here's an interesting fact about your mind and money. We know for a fact that the pain, the emotional pain of loss is greater than the satisfaction of gain. Almost by a factor of 4. That means during a loss, it hurts emotionally 4 times more than the happiness of a gain. So when you put this in financial perspective, that means if the market is down, or you have an investment that doesn't do well, or you lose money for whatever reason, you make a bad spending decision, it tends to hurt more emotionally if you're losing money than it does when it works out well. That's the other reason why you have a negative experience, it tends to fly through social media at warp speed, but the good stuff never seems to go anywhere. Well, a risk taker is a person that has a higher tolerance for emotional loss with money. That just means that it rolls off their back more. They are not as concerned if the things are not going the way they had hoped. Where a risk avoider is a person that gets all wrapped up in knots when the markets are bad, potential for loss from money, or they do in fact lose money. Let me give you an example. My dad, who's 93 years old, is a product of the Depression. He grew up hard. Now, today, he's worth $1 million. He is doing fine, believe me. But he lives with a Depression mentality. He has no exposure in the stock market, but he panics when the market moves. He calls me. What's happened? What do I do? I got to get out. And I have to tell him, Dad, it's okay. You're in money market accounts. You're in certificates of deposit. Your house is paid for. You have no debt. It's okay. He's an example of an individual that is incredibly risk averse. Emotionally, he cannot take a loss. On the other hand, I tend to be more of a risk taker. I have no problem going into risky adventures or investments or whatever, and I understand that loss is part of the process of gain. So there are things that I do that drive him nuts, and there are things that he does that drive me nuts. So those are just 3 examples, and there are numbers of examples of different behaviors and how people think and feel with money. The key point is most people are in the middle. It only becomes a real issue if you're an outlier or you've got what I call really, really dysfunctional behavior with your money. That means you're an extreme spender or you're an extreme saver. Extreme spender, high debt, leveraged all over the place, no money at the end of the month, spending money at the expense of taking care of the family or their well-being. On the other hand, an extreme saver is just flat cheap. You know, living in a trailer but being worth $3 million. not taking care of their family, oversaving. Those are exceptions. Those are the people that often hit the news, but those are exceptions. Most people are in the middle. Now, the flag would be if you know somebody that has extreme behavior with regard to saving or spending, or maximizing or sufficing, or risk taker or risk avoidance, that's the time to sit down and probably work with an accountability coach or somebody that can help them walk through this. Now, when we're talking about money temperament, we need to know a little bit about how we make decisions. And the decision process with humans is incredibly complex, and we're not going to get into that here. There are books written on that, and there are entire disciplines and fields. You can get a PhD on how we make choices. There are anywhere from 250 to 2,000 what we call biases, decision biases, that economists look at and psychologists and whatever. And I've got a couple of them here that I put in the chapter. I think you need to be aware of when you're in a decision-making point, you often rely on your feeling brain to help you choose. Matter of fact, you always rely on your feeling brain to help you choose. And you go in with your associated brain, and your brain automatically, unconsciously, picks up bits of information, and you use that information to help you make the best decision possible. Now, the first thing you need to understand is you can never have total information, contrary to what we say in traditional economics. And the information you have may be inaccurate, it may be wrong, it may be fuzzy. We also know that our brains are not perfect. They're not computers with absolute recall. And we also know that we tend to rely on points when we're making those decisions based on our emotions, our past experience, and the like. So these biases, think of them as heuristics or rules of thumb. We use rules of thumb to make decisions. Again, let's go back to the example of driving. You don't have to be an engineer in automotives or internal combustion engines to drive a car. As a matter of fact, all you really need to be really good at is the activity or the behavior of driving a car. I've been told that I've got an internal combustion engine in my vehicle, that it uses oil. I can't prove it. I've never seen it. I've never been under the hood. I've never changed the oil. I go someplace on a certain time, and somebody who gets paid to do this goes under that hood, does some kind of magic. I give them some money, they reset my computer, and I'm good to go for another about 7,000 miles. That's what I need to know. I don't need to know about oil viscosity, and I don't need to know about the engineering that goes into an automobile. It's the same thing with money and decision making. You don't need to know everything, but I'll tell you, if you're going to be good at making decisions, you need to know your blind spots. You need to know your biases. And they're unique to you. And the problem with money temperament, in most cases, since most of your spending is automatic and non-conscious, you are primed to spend before you even get your money to the cash register. Think about that. You are prepared to spend. Just the act of going to a store primes you to spend money. During minor decisions, it's not a big deal. But if it's a consequential decision, again, like buying a car, buying a boat, buying a house, a major expenditure, you have to force yourself to understand your natural money temperament. Are you naturally a saver? Are you naturally a spender? If you're naturally a spender, your bias is to be emotionally excited about the purchase process, and you have a tendency to spend more money. On the other hand, if you're an absolute saver, you may hold back too much and not buy the features and benefits you actually need. You may avoid risk when a little bit of risk is okay, and you may demand perfection when perfection is not attainable. So let me give you an example of some of these biases. Again, biases, heuristics, rules of thumb are what we use to make decisions easy. Again, it's like driving the car. You use rules of thumb to drive your car. You get in, you don't think about turning the wheel. You don't think about using your blinker. You don't think about how you regulate the gas and pedal. It happens non-consciously. The same thing with a lot of your spending. So in a consequential spending decision, and I don't know what that is, you need to have a dollar amount to put on that. You've got to force yourself from your feeling brain to your thinking brain to go, wait. I know what my tendencies are. I know what my natural temperament is. In this situation, the last time I was here, I got carried away and spent too much on dinner. I spent too much on my car. I bought too much in clothing. Or I did not spend enough and we had a dinner that was terrible and an awful experience. I was too cheap on that vacation. We were miserable. I bought a car I don't like. Again, I'm not judging. It has to work for you, but you have to be brutally honest. So you have to move from your feeling brain to your thinking brain. At the end of the video, I'll give you a couple of tips. So let me give you a couple of biases that we use. One is called endowment. We know naturally that the endowment bias simply means that the stuff I own is worth more to me, and I tend to value it more than the marketplace often warrants. That means my house is worth more than your house, and in a buying or selling situation, I tend to overvalue it, even though when the people come in and they give me an offer, I think it's too low. I'm emotionally attached to my house or the product I own where the other folks are not. Endowment. How about loss aversion? I talked about that. The market drops like a rock. I'm selling. Loss hurts more than gain. Overconfidence. This is huge, particularly for smart people, people that have been successful in a lot of different areas, people that have generally done well in other professions or other activities. Overconfidence just says, hey, just because I'm good at one thing, I'm good at other things. Well, not necessarily. Just because you're a highly successful surgeon, it does not mean you can run a restaurant. Or just because your mom made great meatball sandwiches, it doesn't mean you can run a food truck. Overconfidence, hugely, hugely powerful. Thinking that you're smarter than the circumstances, thinking that you have more information, that you know more than what's going on. Confirmation bias. We do this all the time, and this becomes a huge problem with social media. Confirmation model bias simply means I know I'm right. Look at all the stuff I found on the internet, and it supports my decision. With confirmation bias, you are looking to confirm your decision with people that are just like you, using information you agree with. If it's a real important decision, I recommend instead of finding somebody to support your decision, you try to find somebody to talk you out of it. Confirmation bias is a huge problem with the internet. Social media, you can find not only a few people, but literally hundreds, maybe thousands of people to take a decision, and it's easy to get into a group that everybody says, yeah, thumbs up, when it might be a terrible decision for you and your circumstance and your context. Be very, very careful of confirmation bias. Next is self-attribution. Self-attribution means that when something happens and it's a good outcome, you assume that that good outcome was a direct result of your ability, your intelligence, your hard work, when in fact you might just have been lucky. This has been a huge issue over the last 10 years. The last 10 years was an incredibly robust stock market. Almost everything was up. You could throw a dart and make money. Well, self-attribution says, I am a great stock picker. I'm a great analyst of the economy. I am great with money. Look at what I have. When in reality, you're just going with the market. You were just lucky. Remember, sometimes you're just lucky. And the other problem with self-attribution is you often, again, non-consciously take credit for the gains, but when things don't work out well, you start pointing fingers and assume the behavior of the victim. Here's the deal with self-attribution. If you're going to take credit for the up, you also have to take credit for the down. Last one I'm going to talk about, illusion of control. Give you an example. I attended a seminar on option training, bought their software, now I can beat the market. I bought a course on the web. I talked to a friend. I've got this degree. I've got a certification. I've been doing this for years. The assumption with the illusion of control is that you can control your behavior in such a way with either tools, techniques, education, whatever, that you have the ability to control or predict the future. Trust me, you can't. So be careful of those. Now, there are thousands of these, and I talk about a few more of these in the book. And if you follow me on the website and blog, we talk about this in detail. Key point you need to understand, your money is how you think. Your money temperament is how you think and feel about money. Your money temperament is unique to you. Your money temperament influences your choices. Your money temperament is biased and sometimes leads to bad, sometimes terrible money choices. You need to know your money temperament to be able to make better money choices. Let me say that again. Better money choices start with discovering, knowing, and managing your money temperament. Your money temperament should align with your money values. This is where the money values things and the way you're actually spending your money get into conflict. Your money temperament and money values need to be aligned. And then finally, your money temperament drives your money strategy and your money plan. Okay, this went long, but I'll tell you, this is important stuff. Money temperament is how you need to start thinking about money. Money temperament is how you choose money temperament. Understanding and control thereof will determine your level of financial security, your peace of mind, and whether in the future you've achieved what is important to you about money, your money values. Check it out in the book. This is chapter 6 in the book. We get into this in some detail. Again, discover your money temperament, manage your behavior, then your money. Have a great day.